morning and welcome to Brandenburg News Network. I am Donna Brandenburg and it's the 28th day of March 2024 and welcome to our show today. So I'm going to bring on Ralph and Karen right away and we're just going to start talking about everything, news, views, what's going on as well as encouragement. How are you guys doing this morning?
Oh, doing good. How about you?
Good, and tech time.
Yeah. Sun is out today. I'm a happy woman.
Yeah, people really don't understand the dynamics of West Michigan, which we're in West Michigan. So the west side of the state is a completely different climate zone than anything, say, I don't know, 20 miles east of Grand Rapids, right? We get so much rain and snow and clouds that it's hard for people to relate to that. So they always throw us into the whole state of Michigan, our weather is, and it's not even remotely close. So when we get sun, it's a big deal.
To be fair, they probably do that with the UP too.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
they get quite different weather sometimes.
What we really need is something akin to an anti-solar panel that makes energy when it's dark.
funny guy. So yeah, it felt really good. We got out this morning, did a little bit of walking. It actually felt good. I've got a pretty bad sprain or injury on my left leg, and I've been gimping along with this thing for about 5 months now. So this is the first, 5 weeks. So this is the first day that I actually went out and walked again, and it's a little sore, but hey, we're moving forward with it. Got to push through and endeavor to persevere. So there you go.
Yeah, just gotta keep moving.
Got to keep moving. Just move those feet. Just keep moving those feet. So what are we talking about, guys? I've got a few things on my radar, and just want to hear what's on your minds right now, because I think we can go in a lot of different direction. Of course, the bridge that came down, we've got a lot of, I've got some opinions about that. And, we had the wonderful little attack that somebody decided it was a good idea to record a conversation and then use it as a weaponized little thing against Donna Brandenburg. And then some of the rest of the state is going, how dare you speak out against, Scotty boy. And I'm like, where were you guys when I was getting attacked from every angle out there? I guess they have protected classes of people when they do something wrong, but I digress.
I was kind of thinking something that might be a good thing to talk about too is with all of the internet and grid difficulties that have been going on the last month or so, a little bit of some ideas for off-grid communications for, if and when the communication networks go down.
I think this could be a really good topic for us to cover, because I was talking to some of my Anon friends about what to do when things go down. And there's quite a few people that are a little concerned. They're finally starting to wake up a little bit. Some of us have been interested in this for many, many years. I don't know, probably my whole life. And I know you guys are too, with the not necessarily relying on the systems that are in place. So there are wonderful ways to go around this. The communication is one of them, but there's more to it. And I'm going to tell you some of the adventures I'm on right now, because I love doing stuff like this. And I like the independence. I don't like being dependent on anybody. Anytime you're independent on somebody, anytime you take money from somebody, there's always strings attached. So I'm kind of against all of that. And I think it's always a bad idea.
That's one of the things I really kind of admire about the Amish, is the dedication to self-reliance or community reliance, as opposed to being connected to the grid, being connected to the internet, relying on all of these big networks of things for, survival and ongoing maintenance of everything that you're doing. And I mean, that's one of the reasons why in some of the Amish communities, you'll see them using electricity as long as they generate it themselves. As long as they can locally generate it and aren't dependent on somebody else. And it depends on the Amish community. I mean, they do have different beliefs depending on the community. That's actually one of the hallmarks of the Amish, is that there isn't an overarching structure for, all of them. It's a community-based thing. But yeah, some of them will use electricity. Some of them will even use computers. There are computers that are designed for the Amish to use And one of the main things about those is that they are supposed to be completely self-contained for being able to manage their farms and businesses without having to go onto the internet and be dependent on other people. And some are also built to be able to run off of locally produced electricity, be it through solar panels or a generator.
I tell you what, I was at a gathering down in Paw Paw a couple of years ago now. I think it's been about a year and a half ago. And they had one of the cutest little steam engines down there I have ever seen in my life. It was so cute. And they were making ice cream with it. And it was the cutest little thing. I'm like, man, I would love to find one like that because that was just adorable.
You know the Whispering Pine store that you've talked about before?
I love that place. And if you ever go up to Fremont and you go to Whispering Pines, get the little maple twists that's got like some sort of I don't know, it's got some sort of a custardy filling in it. You will not be disappointed, and plan on going up there, save all your calories for the day.
Yeah.
Get right into that, because that is one of those things that it's worth every bite, every calorie you're expending on it.
Well, the reason I bring that up is because if you go past the store on that road, not the main road, but well, I know what road is it? I don't know the name of the road.
North, south, or east and west. It's on east-west road.
If you are turning west to get to the store, the store that the road that the driveway is on.
Okay, yeah.
You keep going and you take a right. There's some cows, and then there's a bicycle store. There are cows immediately behind the bicycle store. That bicycle store is amazing. It is the best one that I have been to. And I've been to a few, not because of myself, but because of my husband. But you can get anything you need for a bike there or through him. And he's even selling e-bikes. That's what made me think of it.
Ooh,
and high end kind of things that, not just the simple ones. So the people are really into bicycling, mountain biking, trail riding, serious road riding. There's an Amish owned store right around the corner from Whispering Pines.
And you want to talk about being in shape. When I was down there and watching how everybody works together, they're because they're moving all the time and they're working together. It's kind of fun to watch a community like that work together. It's very coordinated. They don't even have to talk. I used to have a couple of electricians that would do work for me years ago. They didn't even talk to each other. It was the funniest thing you've ever seen, is Bill and Gary, and they're a couple of older guys, and they go and they'd worked with each other for so long that they knew what each other thought. They knew what the next move was going to be, and they just kind of went through their days. And you didn't have a lot of bickering and who's in charge and such. And I tell you what, as a person who manages and who has multiple businesses, the people aspect part of, maybe we should go into this, okay? The people aspect part of managing a business is the worst part of having a business. And the reason being is that everyone seems to be trying to fight for who's in charge constantly. It's and it brought to mind something to me yesterday, that anyone who wants to be in power shouldn't have it and doesn't deserve it. When we look at being in power, it should be more of a servant's heart, and you step up when you need to, but that's not maybe your happy spot. You'd rather be drinking coffee with Karen and Ralph, for example, than to be dealing with all the headaches that come with management. Because being a true leader, it's not about running people around like a bunch of little trucks. It has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with dealing with problems. That's all you really do all day long, is you deal with problems. You try to keep the wolves at bay. You try to keep things in order and such. But it's not really much of a glorious job, because if you are a true manager, you're the one that's getting the arrows fired at you every day. I'm going to put an example out there, because I had a meeting yesterday with one of the companies, and one of the people said, "Well, we know you don't like this," and I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And I had to do it. It was kind of a real minor thing, but I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she went into, well, we know you don't like it. I said, well, I've never even heard of this. You had anybody bring it up to me. So this is kind of crazy. So I'm like, I have no opinion on this whatsoever. I mean, if that's something direction that you guys want to go in, I could care less. I don't micromanage. If this is something you guys want to do, I'm like, where did you get this from? And I had it pretty much figured out. It was somebody that's no longer working for us. I'm like, oh, you're listening to the vodka fairy out there. That's what's happening here is you got to stop listening to the vodka fairy and coming directly to Donna Brandenburg and getting questions asked, because don't make assumptions on what people like or what they don't like. You gotta run right to the fire, go talk to them, because people like to be the purveyor of fake news and things that are not true in order to being in charge. That's what this is all about. It's about people trying to, and I can put this in perspective because of my youngest daughter, who I adopted, who came from an orphanage. There's actually a term for it. It's an orphanage mentality. What that looks like is in an orphanage, people try to jump on top of each other to get the attention and the food and this, that, and because they really have no one that they're special to. It's true. It's absolutely true. When a child comes out of an orphanage, they all cry, and it's because of the lack of the familiar. But we're going to talk about the fact that when people are older and they spent time in an orphanage, it's a brutal place to be without a mom and a dad. So it's basically survival of the fittest, which is what our entire nation looks like right now. Everybody's a threat. We're all, the whole nation is, I'm special. I want to be in charge. Really, that's not what a leader does, and not at all. And so they climb on top of each other's head just to get ahead. That's what orphanage mentality is. So when people are looking for being in power over other people, it's completely a screwed up mentality. A leader doesn't get any joy over being in, necessarily in charge of other people. It's about, what's the goal? What are you trying to accomplish here? Are you trying to run a company? Are you trying to provide good jobs? Is your mind all tied up in what you're going to get, the material things you have, or is there actually a bigger purpose to this? I think so many people had it lorded over them for so long that they don't even know. If a leader walked in front of them and smacked them in the face, they wouldn't even realize it if they saw it.
So, daily reference to the Roman Empire. We need modern Cincinnati. We need more people like Cincinnatus, where they, called to duty and then went back to his farm.
Yeah,
called to duty, went back to his farm. Didn't really want the job. Did it begrudgingly. Did a fantastic job of it from all of the documentation about what he did, and then went back to his farm.
Mm-hmm. There's this concept that there's a difference between ego mind and heart mind, and I've been thinking about that a lot lately. There are people who will rise to the occasion, and I'm one of these types that I know I have an ego. I'm aware of it. There has been times in my past where, like, I owned a business, or I was teaching. Teaching is a really good example. If you have a group of 10 people, 15 people of any age, because I've taught children and I've taught adults, and the more the harder, right? You have got to maintain control of that group. So you have to have discipline of the group, but you also have to have that leadership quality that causes them to want to allow you to. Because if you rule by fear, it won't work very well. I enjoyed teaching, but I know that if I get in front of a group of people, I have a tendency toward that, I have to control the room, because of all the experience I had doing that. Especially if you're in front of kids, you get that I'm in charge sort of mentality, and it can be done lovingly. But I know that my ego can rise with that. And so I've had to learn in other circumstances, I can't do that. I've got to withhold my ego. I've got to keep it in check. And that can be done by keeping yourself in a state of heart mind. If everything we do is done in brotherly love, to use a biblical term, then it checks the ego readily. You don't have to worry about that because you do it with love in mind. You can't be condescending toward another while leading if you are doing it from the heart and with love in mind. You know, the way you would approach me, for example, I'm kind of a sensitive soul. I took a martial arts class once, and there was a kid that was like 18 years old, and he was a militaristic style, and I just kind of wilted. And I was older than him, but I was wilted under his command. And there was another kid that was like 14, and he would come along and like tip my elbow to make sure to remind me how to hold it properly and smile at me. And I go, okay, I can do this. You know, I needed that little positive feedback as well as the correction in order to move forward with confidence and independence and all those good things. How he would treat the next guy or gal might be different. And if you have ego heart, you keep everybody in mind. This is something that Trump is really good at. He speaks to multiple audiences at once. And some people are like, oh, I'm so offended by Trump. You're missing the fact that he's speaking to you from the heart.
Well, and the other thing is that, you know, quite honestly, I had a tough dad. My dad, my upbringing was no, it was tough. It was very tough. And I can't even tell you some of the statements I wouldn't even say it online. You know, it's like some of the things that were said to me or that I went through when I was a kid. But I'll tell you, if I cried around my dad would look right at me and say, "Stop your crying, or I'll give you something to cry about."
Yeah.
And there was he was pretty brutal on things. You know, there was no quartering for any nonsense around my dad. You know, I'm like, if I was doing something he didn't like, I mean, one of the things that he would say is you knock it off, or your ass is grass and I'm the lawnmower. He had some really funny. He was really funny, as an adult now, and looking at as a kid, you know, you're like, whoa, you know, but as an adult, you see it differently. And now I think he's hilarious. At the time, it wasn't funny at all. But it kind of changes, you know, and our upbringings give us a different perspective. I think that the person who goes through some severe circumstances, I did, then you come out of it, and you only got two ways to go. You look at it as a victim. Oh, pity me, wah, 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 you know, play your little violin and, you know, such. Or you look at it and go, you know what? I survived all of these things. And it changes us for, I think, the better if you make good choices about it and say, this is one of those things like sharpening steel, where God chooses some people to go through some really tough stuff. And it's not necessarily some people that would break, and other people, it just makes you resilient and tough. And you don't let your life be based on other people's opinions at all. You're just like, okay, it's kind of like a mom thing, you know, when you I know you don't have any children, Karen, but when you raise kids, you know, I raised a lot of kids, and I helped raise other people's kids. And when I homeschooled, I'd have 75 kids in my yard every Thursday in the summer and such. But you look at it pragmatic, because I'm going to tell you what, children can be little terrorists. That's all I can say. You know, they're like irrational. They do things like, you know, you never thought you would have to say these things to a human being as you're growing up. Don't touch that part of the dog. You know, I mean, there's all that, you know, little kids just don't, you know, they're little, they're learning. They've got to develop, and you have to look at the things that they do, which are irrational and or crazy sometimes, and go, well, this is kind of cute, but you know,
But
I'll never forget one of my kids, probably going to enjoy this story, was at somebody else's house, another homeschooler's house, and they had this little thing on the table, and I, my son walked up and he was just kind of curious about it. Now I'm going to tell you, this child was extraordinarily smart, would never do anything that was actually childish, because it's kind of like born 90, and was just kind of looking at it because he's very mechanical minded. And the gal's house, and I get it, I always told my kids, don't touch things that weren't his, that weren't yours anyway, but he was just kind of looking at it, and not even, I don't even think that he touched it, actually. I think he was looking at it. She's like, don't touch that. And I said to my son, I said, you know what, the other kids that are in the back there really need you to go out and play with them, make sure that they're okay. And so instead of having a heavy hand, you can be really, when somebody's intentions are good, and that's what a good parent does, looks at their kids and kind of understands them. And I think that's how God is with us. He looks at us and he knows our intentions. He knows those people that are doing things just because they're a problem. Okay. They have chosen to do really bad things and they enjoy doing bad things. And then you have those, most of us who we're just kind of curious, and we're kind of looking around and we're kind of figuring things. He knows the difference of that, and he approaches people differently because we're individuals, But I think I think that was kind of a cool story. You can be kind, unless somebody's like threatening you and your family, then pull the swords out, guys, and don't be stupid. I don't mean, grab your torches and pitchforks, but no quartering for people who are evil. That's what mama bears do. Good to your cubs. You might say, hey, knock it off, go play over here or something for a little while. But somebody threatens those cubs, there's not going to be negotiation.
I shared a video just last night with a woman. The Ring camera recorded it. She approaches her door and her teenage daughter's behind her. And this guy comes around the corner and grabs the daughter like by her hips and sucks her backwards and around a corner.
Oh my God.
Strangest way to kidnap a teen, and while someone else is present in daylight in the middle of this apartment. It looks like an apartment complex. And the dog is freestanding. And so the woman, at first she's not realizing what's happening. The dog is alert, and she reaches to stop the dog from running off. And then she's like, hey, where's my girl? She goes around the corner, and then you hear her yelling because she figures it out pretty quickly. This is all just a matter of seconds. And then you can hear her shrieking and shouting, get out of here. Don't make me call the police. I don't know if she wailed on him first or not, but she let it be known that he was not welcome. And it just is a reminder.
Disabled him through the crotch really good. That would be a really good time to have cowboy boots on. Put them
it's a reminder of how fragile, how you can think, well, your kid is of age to stay with you. You don't have to hold your hand hold their hand across the street anymore, that kind of thing. And here's this guy. And now that's the setting that we have in this country sometimes, where you can be minding your own business, but you have to be constantly aware of who's around you and what they're doing, because in the blink of an eye, things can go badly.
Did you see that gal in New York who there's bands of migrants that are just going around punching people in the face? That was out yesterday. That she was walking in. A
bunch of reports of that.
A lot of it. I'm going to tell you what, toxic masculinity. You see a guy punch a gal in the face, you laid their sorry butts out. We can't, there's got to be some sort of a threat there. I'm going to tell you what, and they say, Dennis advocating violence. No, I'm saying it's time to defend the people around you. That's a clear and present threat.
Yeah, I hadn't heard that about New York, but
at least people are starting to, actually wake up to the threat a little bit.
Yeah. Well, it has to, it's like, how long will the evils be sufferable? Well, I think sometimes it's not until it gets into your own backyard that you realize this isn't acceptable anymore. But that's why I shared that video, because And I don't know if the guy's an illegal immigrant or not, but I did share an article nearby with an illegal immigrant that raped a 14-year-old girl.
Mm-hmm.
Every immigrant that we hear about harming somebody in what would otherwise be a quote unquote normal situation, we need to point to that and let people know we don't want illegals in our country right now unless they go through the correct process and a proper vetting. It's dangerous to us because they hate us, a lot of these immigrants. And I'm not saying that all of them are hateful, spiteful people that want anything more than their own, I just want to feed my family and work honestly. I'm sure there's some of those coming through too. But there's quite a few that have anything but those kinds of proper intentions. And they're really causing harm in our communities. And they're all over the country. It's not like they're just at Florida.
When people sit there and watch it, though, and they're recording this, and they don't do anything. I saw a gal that was snatched in a gas station. The guy grabs her and throws her in the back of the car. And I'm like, there were people there. I mean, this was caught on a gas station camera, but there were people there that could have stepped in, even if it was just put your car right in front of their car and park it. And disable them from leaving. When you see something like that, in fact, we had a guy that used to work for us, and I thought his stories were real interesting. He was right down on the border in El Paso, and it was years ago. Big guy, real nice guy. He saw a woman that was being grabbed, and there was a van that pulled up, that she was wearing a dress. They pulled her skirt up over her head. So now what she's got no arms, she's got no way to scream, she's got no eyes. He said, I sat there and had to think, what am I going to do? And he had to make a snap decision. He had a .45 Colt in his glove compartment, and he grabbed it and he pointed at him and he said, drop her now. And he made the decision that he was not going to watch this woman kidnapped. And they dropped her. She took off and ran. He said she was so scared she never even looked back to thank him. And he just held him right there until they got in the van and went away. Now, with that said, I'm pretty extra sure at that point in time, maybe you should be holding these people in the position where they are. I mean, that's clear and present. There was harm intended. Call the cops and get somebody there quick. Get them arrested. Not that the judges are gonna, but you know what? We keep putting stops in there. It's like they're predators. Predators will take the path of least resistance. They're not going to go after somebody that's going to stop and hold the ground.
That's really true. That's something that I think a lot of people don't understand too about digital security. Is there is no way to perfectly secure anything, physical or digital. All you can do is make it more difficult than it's worth to try and break into it. You can keep adding layers of security upon layers of security, but you will never perfectly secure it, because there's always going to be someone out there that's bored enough, has enough time, and is smarter than you that can get through your defenses. But you got to make it so that, is it worth it for them to try and do it? And if it is worth it for them to try and do it, then maybe you need to figure out a way to make it not worth it, And that, I think, applies to really just about anything in a security context. Is you really have to balance out the usefulness of the thing you're protecting with the security. That's one thing that kind of bugs me about the TSA, is that most of the stuff that they do really doesn't increase security. All it does is it's security theater. It just inconveniences people and takes up more time and makes the actual thing that they're protecting far less useful.
Well, look at the moronic thing that they're saying about illegals. Well, if we make them do this, we're going to have long lines. Well, guess what? You already failed. There's already long lines because they're trying to get people to do the retina scans and such. When I went through JFK airport in New York. I got sick of it. I got in the line to have things scanned, and I just said something to the guy that was there. I'm like, we all know this is a sham. I'm like, why are we doing this? You guys are targeting Americans. I waited in line way too long. I mean, the lines it was over an hour to get through airport security. Over an hour just to get through these machines that have an 80% failure rate. It's an 80% failure rate. This is a scam, and we're paying for the scam. And they know that it's failing. They know there's no security in this.
It gets tested periodically, and it's almost always at least an 80% failure rate of them detecting items that they consider to be dangerous getting through security.
It's kabuki theater. That's all it is.
Yeah. And I mean, there are decent ways to do security. Really, after 9/11, the one thing that they did that was actually a decent security measure was putting locked doors on the cockpits of the planes. Right there, they solved the problem. Mm-hmm. And then they dumped a whole bunch of tax money into reforming all of the security stuff and instituting the TSA. Prior to that, the security was handled by the airports themselves at the airport's expense, as I understand it. And we basically just, in one fell swoop, federalized all of that so that the airports didn't have to do it themselves.
Well, and look, they're not like talking your top brass there going through TSA. I've never seen it yet. You know, some of the people are trying to do the job, right? But I'm not talking your top brass there. And look at how much stuff gets stolen in the airports out of luggage. You put anything in checked baggage, sayonara. There's no guarantee you're going to get it back.
So that's something that there's a security guy called Deviant Olem, and that's something that he advocates is every time that you fly, you have a right as an American, you have a right to check firearms. So what he does with his checked bags is throws a lower receiver from a gun in there and follows all the procedures to have it locked in a hard-sided case inside the luggage, and on and on and on. There's a whole bunch of regulations on it, and to be honest, I'm not familiar with most of them. But there's a procedure to follow for checking firearms. The reason why he does that is because that way he can have his bag screened and locked using a lock of his choice, not one of the TSA locks that have been compromised since just about the time that they came out. And so he can actually put a decent lock on his luggage and make sure that it's reasonably secure from the time that it goes through security at the entry point to the time that he gets his luggage back.
So I want to comment on something in the chat here. Hang on a second. Tom says, we're going to go back to Tom says, masculinity is never toxic. Masculinity is what women find attractive in men. There's nothing manly or masculine about domestic violence. You're absolutely correct. I say this as a sarcastic thing because it's that snowflake term out there. Oh my, the toxic masculinity. You know what? I'm going to say right now, I really appreciate every single guy out there that absolutely takes their role in society seriously, because I'll tell you what, I know so many men that they are so brave and they will step in front of any threat to their family, their loved ones, their country, their community. If you ever look at random acts of kindness, every once in a while, if I want to really have a happy day, take a brain break from the political stupidity out there, I will go on one of the carriers and I will look up random acts of kindness. 97% of those things that in those videos all are done by men, because they will run into a situation without even a thought to themselves. They will go in and pull people out of burning buildings. They will jump in water that's in ice and like break through water to get a dog or their dog or something. When I say toxic masculinity, it is one of those things. If you watch what I'm talking about a lot, you'll understand, Tom, about what I'm saying here. It is something that I personally have so much respect for, because you will almost never see a woman jump into those situations, but a guy will just charge right in there without a thought to self, and they will face incredible odds. And you know what? God made us this way. It's like, that's why guys are so strong. The men have it's built in, it's hardwired into men, that bravery, and honestly, the bravery and the selflessness. Now, with that said, our society has done a bang up job on shutting men down and telling them, no, you can't do this. Well, I'm going to tell you what, as you know, someone who is right now going to put myself in a position of speaking for real women out there. We love our guys. We absolutely love men. We think you are fabulous. And we appreciate all the hard work you do every day. You go to work and you provide for your families. You take care of the things to make things work. I could sit here and write volumes on the things that my husband does. He will get up in the morning and make breakfast for the family because he gets up early. He will have he's got all these things in his head every single day of things that are bothering him that he knows need to be taken care of. And he just goes and he does them, and he doesn't even say anything about it. He just said, he just has this stuff and to keep things rolling. And he is an amazing individual. And I just got to say that we real women, we love you guys. We love men. Men are absolutely our dads, our brothers, our uncles, our sons. I hit the jackpot with my sons. I'm going to tell you what, I have the greatest sons on the planet, hands down. So, and everybody that's out there listening, I thank you every day, because you guys are wired differently than we are. And this is a great thing. And I embrace the differences. Men have one single goal in their mind at all points of time. Okay. That's why they work really well in the military. It's like, hit the goal, hit the goal, hit the goal, hit the goal. And they will hit that goal every single time. They don't start thinking about, their aunt and their cousins and all these relationships involved in it. It's like, okay, buddy, we're going to do this, hit the goal. And that's what they do. Where quite often women get distracted by, okay, I can do this, but what if this person is upset with me over this? This is what I see anyway. This is a rare woman that will just run forward and hit a goal without, and being able to prioritize it without having all of these other ancillary things in the way. And I can tell you that my husband does that better than I do in many situations. And I'm kind of a guy, but he still is better at that in certain situations than I am. And I appreciate that from him so very much. He is the clarity of mind in a crisis situation. You guys are great at it. And we appreciate that about you. We appreciate your strength, your selflessness, all these things. And you just get in there and defend your families and defend this country. And real women are going to be sitting there going, you guys go get it. We'll make sure that some other things are happening. The division is a good thing.
I've heard a lot about people that have, say you have a pair of Dobermans and you think you're very protective. If you've got a female and a male, the female will be the one in the front barking. But once the target of the threat is noticed, the male's charging in front and he's going to be the one doing the protecting. And that's kind of like, I'm visualizing the frozen pond scenario that you were describing. There's a woman on the shore screaming and waving her arms. There's danger. There's danger. Help, help, help. That's what we tend to do. But if there's no man around who's willing to do it, that's when you and I are the type that, because we've thought it through many times, we've trained for that sometimes in some ways, we're the ones that if we see something wrong, we're not just going to say, help, help. We're going to take some action, because if there's nobody else around and there's no man around that's capable of handling the thing, we're going to do what we can.
Yeah, and they're going to have to pull me off. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
it's like there was
Bulldog.
an Irish king and queen, and the king took off into battle and left the queen in charge. And she was brutal. When he got back, he was like, "Okay, honey, ramp down here a little bit," because she was absolutely brutal with her exacting the justice that was there. So there's some little crossover there, but there, I hope that makes your day, Tom, because it's definitely, we've talked about these things extensively here, and we appreciate you guys.
Yeah, usually
You know,
whenever you talk about toxic masculinity, it's more of like,
Uh,
condemning the people that would refer to traditional masculinity as toxic by
right.
saying that those traits are good things.
It is. It's a fantastic thing. So I just decided to commandeer the words and change the meanings there, because that's what the snowflakes do all the time. So I'm just going to change the meaning on this. Think about too what's written in the Bible with in regards to women and men and the relationships. And a lot of women say, "Oh, well, be subject to your husband," and blah blah blah. Well, I think that the greater command was to men to be like Christ to their wives, which is laying their lives down to protect and to be that protection like God has to us. It's much more of a command right there. So I don't know. There's a we could go into that at some point in time and really absolutely go into the Bible on it and do like a little Bible study on it. That would be great.
well, I think it's pretty simple. The Bible says women are to be submissive because it's not always natural for us to do that. And men are told to love their wives because it's not always natural for them to express that. God didn't have to tell us to love our husbands because that's much more natural for us to do. But he's reminding us that we have to respect them. And because like you and I, we're going to step up sometimes if the man doesn't do it. And I've known a lot of women who have weak-minded husbands, and the woman takes over if she has to. And sometimes that's a good thing, sometimes it's not so good. But if she's respecting her husband, it keeps the balance. And if he's loving his wife while also being an authority figure, he's protecting her and she's respecting him. And there's a proper balance in the relationship and everything works.
Well, and I think here's a perfect example of that. My husband and the neighbor got into a little tip at one point in time because the neighbor was doing some things that he shouldn't have done and such. And so he was done with us. When he's done, right? And so he shows up and the two of them are standing there nose to nose. I just walked away. I'm like, this is between the two of you. And the neighbor said later they came to terms with it, but it almost came to blows over this, which was kind of the way that men settle arguments is much different than the way women settle arguments. So I just was like, sayonara. You guys deal with it. If you're going to be stupid, go right ahead. But if you're going to go into Stupidville and resolving this conflict, sayonara. I've got better things to do. So I walked away from it. And the next thing you know, it was about I don't know, a little while later, all of a sudden they're best friends. And now they're completely best friends. And my neighbor said to me one time, he goes, "You're a very wise woman, just kind of not getting involved with this." And I said, "No, if you guys are going to be stupid, go be stupid on your own terms. That's not how I deal with problems. But you're going to have to deal with the outcome of it too." So, but they figured out the pecking order there pretty quickly and came to a resolution. But that's not how women solve problems. So it's uncomfortable for us to watch. Sometimes it's uncomfortable because we're like, "Okay, come on, everybody, play nice. There's a better way."
Yeah.
Yep, let them settle.
That's me. I watched the Yellowstone series, and there's a couple of scenes in there where in one case there's a woman that gets in between a couple of guys, and they are just hating on each other, and it finally gets to the point where they're fighting, and they're not allowed to fight. So the head guy puts them in a round pen and Ben says, go at it. And they fight until they're like, they can hardly breathe and they're wore out. And after that, they get along fine and dandy. And where the one had smashed the other's guitar, he goes and pawns off a belt buckle, gets him a new guitar, and he's playing a new guitar, and they're just fun. Well, then later on, after you've seen this, so this is episodes later, there's two women, and these two women are sassing off at each other from the get-go, and there's reasons for that, but finally, they take it outside. And here's the guy nearby standing like, I don't want to see this. But they stand there, these women, and they punch each other while they're standing still, one and then the other. So they brace themselves until they decide, okay, truce. And then they come back into the house and they're bleeding. They've got swellings everywhere. There's bruises and stuff all over their faces. Faces even. Women don't usually fight in their face. Hair maybe, but
and they're like, way to solve a problem though. You know, I'm just gonna say it.
They're happy. That's not how I was raised.
No. You know, there's a point in time where you got to draw a line though. You know, when somebody's threatening your family or your home or your rights or that sort of thing, there comes a point in time where you're just like, no. And that's it. That's the only answer that there is. And you hold them accountable. But anyhow, everybody solves problems different ways, and you can choose to jump into it, and sometimes it's the right thing. I can tell you sometimes people have to be taught that there's a line that's not going to be crossed. There's a time for that. Not every day. Most of the time you can hopefully we're smart enough to be able to talk our way out of it and come to reason. I mean, the smarter way is for everybody to have cool heads and have the way to negotiate your way out of it. But that doesn't always happen.
Well, I think that's what our country.
Sometimes there's situations with fights where Deuteronomy 25:11-12 kicks in. See if I can post a link here a minute.
Is he gonna elaborate?
He's like, just stops. He just stops. It's like, what's the point, Ralph? You went into the tech universe there and just were like.
Sometimes there just found a link to it. Sometimes there are times when it's better to just let people fight it out and not interfere.
Oh my goodness, you're funny. Okay. If two men are fighting and the wife of one of them comes to rescue her husband from his assailant and she reaches out and seizes him by his private parts, you shall cut off her hand, show her no pity. That's kind of directing to the point there.
Yeah. Just found it kind of funny that clearly that was a common enough occurrence.
They're fighting back there. I mean, this is like human nature to, you know, what it's like human nature. It's
fighting dirty. That's what that is.
Tom says soft answers turn away wrath. There you go. Yeah. That's a better way to approach things. But if somebody comes at you with a machete, what are you going to do? You know, I mean, there's a time and a place for all things. So,
well, what I was going to say was, I think this is where our country is at. Is why are we experiencing such a long, it feels to us anyway, drawn out set of circumstances that are just driving us mad? For those of us who are awake and aware of what's happening, it feels like the evils are way past the sufferable line. You know, we are done. We do not want this to happen anymore, any of these things that are causing harm to us. But there are some people who just don't have an awareness or are willing to accept it for a time. And again, the declarations, there was 10 years between the first declaration to the king and the second one that we all know. 10 years of suffering they did. So we're becoming more and more aware of the suffering. But at some point, we could become that way where we are like, I am so done with this. Who can I go out and grab by the crotch, in a sense? And I mean that in, you know, the
Not in
term
a pleasant way.
fighting dirty, you know. We're going to be, I want to get some justice. Who can I haul Gretchen Whitmer out into the street and beat her to a pulp? No, that is not how this works.
That's what
And
they
I think
want
that's
us
one
to
of the
do.
reasons. Yes, that's one of the reasons why we're going through some of the things that we're going through, because we have to allow ourselves time to process this so that we can react appropriately as a people, so that we don't cause further harm to ourselves. It's not about getting justice. We can get justice. I think we will have justice, but we can do it without causing further harm to ourselves by becoming what those things that we so despise.
Mm-hmm.
We're not murderers.
No, and it's also a discernment thing. Have you ever seen it when a cop disables someone through kindness who is really making some bad choices or threatening people?
Yeah.
I've seen that a few times too, where, you know, a brave policeman will come in and say, hey, you know, let's talk. What is making you crazy right now? I mean, that's the best way to approach it, but that's not always possible. But if you can, you always go to that negotiation, just like where we're at with, say, like, oh, I don't know, say our deep state, which has created acts of war regarding Russia and the rest of the whole friggin' globe. Well, we don't want to get into conflicts with people. That is never a good option. That is the absolute worst path we can have. And usually there's ways that you can negotiate your way out of things. But there's discernment involved in this, and discerning what are they really, what's really the pain behind this? What's the driving factor to drive a person into doing something, which is kind of like fight or flight or survival.
Well,
Like horses.
I think too, another thing that kind of goes along with this is, by the same token that traditional masculinity is important, traditional femininity is also incredibly important.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something that really modern feminism really kind of, you know, when that started, it had a couple of different ways it could go. One was try and support. How do I say this? Try and show the importance of traditional feminine gender roles, and try and get men to also join in with that, or try and get women to jump in and basically turn into masculine gender roles. And they kind of went with the latter, and in that, I mean, you look at anything that is empowering to women anymore, you know, anything that's seen that way, it's really kind of all about minimizing the importance of traditional femininity. I mean, you look back at, read anything historical from, I'd say, maybe 1900 or earlier, and women were the ones that ran society. You know, it's always portrayed as, oh, men ran everything, they were in charge. No, men did a lot of things outside the home, but women managed the home, the community, the churches, you know, all of that, all of the functions to keep society on the rails and keep people from basically going to the insanity that we have now. All of that was managed and directed by the women being able to keep everybody kind of going the same direction, working on the same team, and, you know, keeping everybody basically sane.
Well, it's because that women typically are intuitive. And I don't know about all the women out there, but do you know how amazing women are in this regard? I love my girlfriends and everything. We can be in the same room and know what one of our friends is thinking without one word being spoken. And it's accurate. when you have a really good friend, you'll sit there and be like this, and it's like somebody will be saying something, you know exactly what they're talking, what your friend is thinking, and you don't have to say a thing. And the guys are always like, "How did you know this?" I'm like, "Because we're women, and we care about." The other thing is too is like when I watch the difference between my husband and I, he's like, "Okay, kids' car's working good. We got everything. You know, the spark plugs are all firing at the same time. You know, everybody's got good tires. We've got this working well, that working well, that working well." Where I'm like, "How you doing, kids?" And kind of want to, we're taking the temperature of people's emotional well-being. Where my husband, and I'm going to tell husband stories right now because I think this is funny. I think we should share parts of ourselves a little bit because I actually have people that say, we don't even believe you have a husband right now because we never see him. It's like, because he doesn't want to meet anybody. He's that guy that just leave me alone. I want to go to work. I've got projects to do. You go, you be you, and I'll go be me. Right. But my husband will literally, if somebody wants to come up and tell him their problems, even myself, there are times he's like, "Go find a girlfriend to talk to this about because I just don't care." And that would be brutal for a lot of people to hear that out of their partner. And I'm like, well, at least he's honest. He's so I just take it. And I'm like, yeah, you're honest. Okay. I'm going to go have girlfriend time and talk to a girlfriend about this because clearly this is way too much stress for him to handle. And I actually think it's really funny. I think it's hilarious. He's like, "I just don't care. Go find a girlfriend."
I'm not that way though. If I got something I want to get off my chest, then he's the only one there to talk to. He's gonna hear it, whether he wants to or not.
Well, there are times that I say it anyway, and I'm like, "Oh no, you're absolutely sitting here, and you don't get to be king and master of the world all the time, and this is one of those times that just being polite and listening a minute. You don't have to fix it. Just listen.
Yes,
just for a minute.
yes.
This is process time. This is not
Yes.
going with your handyman, fix everything that's wrong with the world time. Just kind of be a girl for a minute. You don't even have to pay attention. Just look like you're paying attention.
And I've heard it too. You kind of said, explain to guys as when your girlfriend or wife is talking to you and you're thinking about fixing a problem, first ask, do you want solutions or do you want empathy? Basically.
Because girls don't want anybody to fix our problems. That's not what if we go talk to a girlfriend, we're just like, we want that girlfriend to go, "Oh yeah, I'd feel the same way."
It's called venting.
It's venting. I'd feel the same way. I know how that feels. I had that happen to me sometime where guys are like, they go right into that mode. "Okay, let's see. Give me more facts here." And the plan started. You see the plan starting to be formed in their head.
Who do I need to go see?
Yeah, what do we need to do to fix this problem? Because this is a problem that needs to be fixed. Nothing needs to be fixed. It's just we're just annoyed about something. And,
jump in the river and save the dog and get out of there.
Yeah.
Well, once again, here's the thing: love your wife. Well, that means you have to listen, and the reason why is because the way we process things is, I know this is very true for me. I internalize everything. I'm constantly thinking, and some people call me an overthinker, but I'm constantly evaluating everything, and if I don't let it out in speech to somebody, I can't let it go. If I can talk about it, I will figure it out as I'm talking about it. It's like wheels grinding, and finally it's like bing, 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 all these thoughts, all these little light bulbs go on, and I'm like, okay, I feel better now. I have answers. I don't have to have somebody else to give me the answers. I just need to process it that way.
So a lot of programmers, there's a technique for that where you keep a lot of programmers do this. You keep a rubber duck on your desk, and whenever you run into a problem that you're having trouble solving, you explain the problem to the rubber duck. The idea being that if you can adequately explain the problem, you can probably figure out a solution while you're explaining it. And if you can't explain it, then you probably don't understand it well enough to be able to even solve the problem, and you need to figure out what you don't know to be able to effectively explain the problem to the duck.
This is hilarious. I love this conversation because this is something else that's a weird fact. And you know how you have these weird facts that when babies are being developed in the womb, at about 8 weeks is when things really change and we divert off to being female or male, even though with the characteristics. One of the things that happens is that there's like a little bit of a testosterone spike in the baby. And it effectively changes the brain structure of males, which I have this discussion with my husband quite often, right? What it does is it changes the connective tissue between the lobes of the brain. So in women, it's about the size of a tangerine. In men, it's about the size of a walnut. So it's true. And so men typically think with one side or the other side of their brain, where women have that connective ability to go back and forth. It's a physiological reality, right? So when you see women be able to think through problems, this is awesome. Why are we trying to be like each other? It's okay to be what God created us to be. Women typically can go like this. That's why you have kids running around. You have 8, 10 kids, running around, and women are just like, okay, I've got my finger on the pulse of everything in the room.
I've got 50 tabs on the computer.
Yeah. And I had a programmer explain this to me one time, which is a great way to say this. And this guy was really funny, real funny guy. And one of those guys that sits behind his computer, and if he has to interact with people, it's a painful moment, no matter who it is. So he comes to me one day, he goes, I finally understand women. And I'm like, okay. The question is the statement itself was weird to me, but I was like, okay, I kind of expected it, and said, okay, well, what is that? He goes, women are like windows. They have all these windows open in their head all the time, where men are like DOS. It's line by line by line by line by line. I'm like going, yeah, that pretty much adequately explains it right there. I think it's explained by the connective tissue in the brain, really. So what's really funny is I'll actually look at my husband and I'm like, I know you're only thinking with half your brain right now, so that's okay. I give you grace with this, and it's a joke between us. It's not a put down. It's just a joke. But I think that does explain a lot of things. Like, we'll have conversations and be able to repeat the entire conversation. Does this not blow your mind, Ralph? Because we've had discussions about this, so I know it does. Blows your mind that women can repeat entire conversations. And the guys are like, I don't even remember what you said 2 minutes ago. Because first of all, I didn't care, and I'm on to my I'm on to my fixing my engine thing right now. And I can't remember even what you said. So when you bring things up to say, well, remember what you said, the guys are like, help me. I think it's absolutely hilarious. I really do.
I think this is summed up well by thinking of Ralph as having a rubber duck by his computer. And Donna's got a Trump doll and a Karen the Riveter and a unicorn. And
I can manage all of these things.
He can talk to all the presidents, including Trump.
President. Let's see if I can get him in the camera here. This is weird. There we go. The rightful president of the United States, President Donald J. Trump.
I used to have a little Yoda that I set by the computer.
You know what's really...
He would clear my mind of questions.
This is really funny. I posted something funny because I'm a fairly serious person when I'm doing business, but I have a really warped sense of humor. Like, I find a lot of things really funny. Very few people that if I'm out around talking with people, I'm trying so hard to listen to what they say. I'm really listening with great intention to find out what they're really saying and what their intention is. So I can be really serious externally, but my friends that know me know that I've got like I find like everything funny. I really do. And I posted something yesterday having to do with Scott McMahon, who intentionally came at it to try to do me harm by recording a conversation and putting it out there. I'm like, don't take a nail clipper to a missile fight, dude. And I put that in one of my posts, because You know, if you're not prepared for a beast level debate, you might want to back down just a little bit. So anyhow, I posted this picture that I think is hilarious. Let me put it up there. I thought this was funny, and somebody
I heard his recording.
So childish, and I'm like, childish is funnier than crap. It's hilarious, and you know what? And quite honestly, it's like this is funny. I think it's absolutely hilarious because I accused him of being like bat. I'm waiting for Bat Boy on your channel next because I was looking at the post times on his media. What is it? Big whatever it is. Big what? Who the hell cares? Media.
Oh yeah.
And I don't even care. And I was looking at the posting date because when it came out, I noticed it. I noticed his post date for the articles. I'm like, okay, this is going to be a person who's pushing an agenda. It's not balanced. He's going after one side. Who's he working for? That was what I thought when I started seeing him posting in January. And you know what? He had some truth in there. So there was definitely some truth out there. But there's truth on both sides. So right now, I'm not a fan of Karamo or Hoekstra, neither one of them. And it wasn't my fault that people were dumb enough to put somebody in that committed treason. I just pointed it out.
And you pointed it out during that short conversation.
I absolutely did. So anyhow, I posted this. You guys are going to think this is funny. I saw it after my reference to Bat Boy.
Yeah,
waiting for the sensationalism stuff. I'm like, here you go. I'm like waiting for Bat Boy pictures to come out. So I thought this was pretty funny. And
I love Weekly World News.
I think it's hilarious. And then somebody from the UP posted. Melanie posted. She's like, "That's childish." I'm like, childish? Have you watched my last 2 years of listening to this nonsense out there in the political world, and you want to call this childish? Hold my beer.
Look at my trail of memes too.
Yeah,
I got Donna chasing a goat.
Morons sitting in political groups and in political things that have no plan. All they do is they fight like a couple of children. You want to talk childish? Go to a political meeting and watch who's trying to be right instead of finding any answers. It's like, well, this person's in charge. I'm in this clique. I'm in this camp. Blah blah blah. It's like, you can keep it. I mean, it's absolutely one of the most childish, unprofessional things I've seen. And I've not heard anybody, step out and say, "Oh, that was really childish the way you treated Donna Brandenburg." Well, it was. And I'm not expecting anybody, because I'm going to go to my husband's point right now, because I don't care. Find a girlfriend to talk to on this. Go cry over your herbal tea and your fat-free cookie.
Well, they might be confused and talk to a guy.
Yeah, I think they're confused. I thought it was pretty funny. But hey, when a person comes forward, if somebody, and I invited him, I sent something out last night. I said, come on, Brandenburg News Network, Scotty, let's do this and we'll talk this thing out. And we'll see if he takes up my offer. Let's go and talk. Let's talk this thing out. It was clear that somebody recorded me with an intention to do harm. The intention was there. The intention was there. And
if
so
the intention wasn't there, he would have told you right off the bat, "Is it okay if I'm recording you so that I can quote you accurately?"
Yes.
No, that's not what he did.
No, the intention was to do me harm. And that's where he fell off the wagon with me right there. So it's like, if Scotty Boy wants to come on here and talk this thing out and talk about what he found, I would be more than happy to talk to him. But never come out to intentionally do somebody harm. That's me or anybody else. It's a low life activity.
And if anyone outside the state of Michigan thinks that secretly recording and then publishing an audio recording of a phone call like that is a little fishy, Michigan is a little. There are several states that are generally considered to be single-party consent states for recording. Michigan is one of those, which means that it's considered to be legally permissive to record a conversation as long as one of the people being recorded knows that the recording is happening. And that's the only thing that sets it apart from wiretapping. That's not true in all states. So if you're outside of Michigan and that seems a little odd, that is one Michigan quirk, I guess.
Yeah, and so there's things that are allowable under the law, if you even know the law, which apparently we don't know the law out there. There are things that are allowable under the law, but are they ethical, and or what are you trying to do? Are you trying to get to an answer, or are you just trying to sensationalize things? Because you go at people like that, you're going to destroy all trust. You do not do this to people. You can call them out. I'll call out anybody publicly, or I will talk to them first and give them a chance to make sure that I'm understanding where they're coming from. I personally find it a despicable. There's a lot of people that do it. And I find it absolutely a despicable practice.
Yeah, there's a huge distinction between ethically acceptable and legally acceptable.
Right.
Yeah.
it
discredits him to me entirely, as well as the he's got some facts, but a clock is right. A clock is always right twice a day. So there's some facts there that he puts out that are correct. And I agree with him on the things that he was bringing out about Christina Caramo, but you got to be a little balanced there. It's like you just don't go out just as an attack dog onto a certain area. I mean, right there, it tells you there's a bias. So why is it that somebody can come into alternative media and have the biases same as fake stream media? There's biases on both sides, and we have to be unbiased in looking at what's behind this. What are they trying to bring us truth? Or are we just trying to ignore the truth and go for fanboy clubs there or fangirl clubs? Because that's highly misleading. When I talk about President Trump, the rightful president of the United States, got to say it at least once in every show, he's the rightful president of the United States through a fraudulent election, maladministration. And I know Donald's going to say it's not fraudulent. Well, it was, but not only that, it is something that that was the overthrow of the government right there with a fraudulent election. When I talk about President Donald Trump being in that capacity, the real fight there is to stand up for him, not as a fanboy or fangirl, though I'm kind of a fangirl because I like his policies. But what it is it's standing up for the office of the presidency. It's that office of being the president of this United States that was attacked.
Well, and the procedural
was an attack on every single one of us. You can't just go win at all costs. It's got to be a lawful process to win. And we have to defend the structure set out by the Constitution of the United States. That's why I'm so adamant about this. They violated his rights, but they also violated each and every single person in the United States. Whether you are, say, you're Democrat or Republican, they attacked the very core, the very foundation of the United States of America.
Yeah, and that's something too that I think sometimes people don't understand how someone can be in the Constitution Party and still be for Trump. And there's a lot of people in the Constitution Party that very much disagree with President Trump and his policies. But by the same token, there's a lot, those same people will defend to their core the process being carried out correctly.
Exactly.
There are a lot of people that believe that not only should President Trump have been properly elected president last time, but that going back, that Bernie Sanders should have taken the Democratic nomination in 2016 instead of Hillary.
which goes back to Seth Rich.
And it's the same fight. And so there you have people that are basically against both of those things happening the way that they did, because both of them were wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Regardless of their actual political affiliation, the process and the voice of the people has to be carried through.
Well, but
Right.
you can see where Bernie was compromised too, because he got sort of a $600,000 payoff to buy a house and such. I mean, there's all sorts of trades going on within our government.
There were a lot of problems there too.
There's huge problems there.
I'm not going to say that there aren't, problems everywhere, but by the same token, you have to start looking critically, not at just one party, not at just both parties, but both parties' cooperation to carry this kind of stuff through against the will of the people and against the proper processes and procedures that are in place to protect the will of the people.
The parties have become domestic terrorist organizations, in my opinion, because they have attacked the how do I say it? They have literally attacked the rights of individuals. They have refused to stand for as a organization, and they're manipulating. They're manipulating. They're incredibly dangerous right now because they're so much funded by the dark money, as well as the PAC money and such, that it usurps it manipulates and it usurps. It's social engineering. I mean, I could go into all the things that are wrong with political parties, but they need to be abolished. They absolutely need to be abolished.
And I'm not going to say that Bernie's a saint either, but 2016 should have been Trump versus Sanders, not Trump versus Clinton. And 2020 was carried out wrong too.
This was never about Trump, being a Trump fan, quote unquote. The reason I support Trump is not because President of him. Trump. Yes. It's not because of my rightful commander-in-chief, but because he represents the people and the will of the people and what is right and best for our country. It is not about Trump at all. It's not about one man. It's not about whether we like his tweets or you think he took advantage of a woman, or whether he was rich or too rich, or it's not about his income or his business practices or whether he was a good TV show host, any of that. It's not even about his policies per se. It's about the fact that he has been representing the people from the very beginning, and he's been for the people and not for a party. It's not about the GOP. He is not a Republican.
Not remotely. He's not he is a Republican in the classical sense, as a Republican form of government, but he was best friends with JFK Jr. He came from a Democrat kind of background. He ran as on the Constitution Party in the 90s. He literally can talk to everyone because there are core values that we all share. There's things that we all share, and there's a lawful process that we could all get behind that would make it equitable for everyone involved, and helping to achieve what was set up by our founding fathers, the individual rights. So, I get asked this all the time by people that are gay or, that are gay or lesbian. Well, what do you think? Because they're trying to catch me, right? It's like, well, what do you think about gay marriage? Because that is the programmed in divisive thing that everybody wants to talk about. Same thing. There's so many things that were created in this dialogue that were meant to divide us. Well, what do you think about gay marriage? Because I'm conservative and I'm Christian. And I'm like, why does my opinion matter? I have my own opinions on how things are run. And there is I acknowledge that marriage is an institution that's set forth by God. However, why is the government involved in this? Explain that to me.
Yep.
It shouldn't be. The government should not be involved in marriage. Discussion done right there. You want to get married? I'm not going to agree maybe with certain things in my life. I'm not going to agree with it. I'm absolutely not going to agree with all of the grooming of children in the schools by paid provocateurs. Most of the gay pride nonsense that I see out there, these people are paid. I don't even know if they're gay or lesbian. And they suck in people that are kind of like low IQ, just like the Black Lives Matter stuff. This is a recruiting ground for low IQ people by people that are being paid to be disruptors. It's exactly what's happening there. There's no reason at all for the government to be involved in all of these things. And it's only to find a way to funnel money into splinter groups or splinter individuals and grow the government and grow their influence and create disruption and create problems so that they continue to violate our rights. And it all needs to be changed. It all needs to be abolished, because when this society is based on, well, what can I do to get money from the government in this way or that way? You're stealing from someone else because somebody else is having to pay the bill.
Yep.
The government
social
is not
issues.
this great big box of money that we should be looking at and go, well, how can I get more out of the government? The government is your family. The government is your neighbors. The government and that money, that is what your children and grandchildren are going to be paying, are going to be picking up the bill for. The $1 trillion that we're adding every every week right now? What is it, a week or a month or something like that?
I think last I heard was 90 days.
It is. We are adding a week, a month or 90 days. We are adding so much debt to this nation. It's not sustainable. And we'll go back to, you better know a farmer. You better know what's going on in your neighbors, because it is not sustainable the way it is. It's going to crash, and it's going to crash hard. And we're gonna, I think, see the end of this very, very satanic, situation that's on right now.
Yeah, a lot of these social issues, though, like you said, it's all about funding. If you were to defund all of this stuff, the fight would be done.
Yep. Find your happiness.
Did you see that Javier, what's his name? The new president of my brain is still limited right now. The new president of a country. He's cutting 70,000 government jobs out. I shared it last night. And from the government. And I'm like, woohoo! I was like, I almost shared it with your channel just to make sure that you saw it, because I was like, that's what Donna wants to do. I'm like, I said, I'm kind of jealous.
I just wish for these budgets they keep passing. If it's like, oh, we got to pass the budget or the government will shut down. Good.
We don't need them.
Clearly, whenever they've shut down before, the only impact that anybody has actually seen in their lives has been because they actively spent money going out and closing down parks and public pools when they didn't have any money to spend, just to make sure it was good and painful for the populace.
You bet they did. They're not there to serve people. And when you look at the salaries these people make for what they do, I've got people that are in Lansing that have, I've got all my little friends everywhere, right? I've got friends everywhere. And to the amount of people who sit at a desk, or used to at any rate, till the pandemic, the scandemic came along. Now they just sit in their houses playing fetch with their dogs or something. But they sit there because they don't even have anything to do. And we're paying them in large amounts of money just so that they can pad their budgets, so that they can increase the number of employees. They're not running lean. They have no interest in running lean. Look at what Whitmer did during the shutdowns. She gave everybody, what was it, a bonus? It was like a $600 a week bonus for closing down and putting them on a 32-hour a week. She cut their hours to 32 hours and gave them a $600 COVID bonus. I want you to think about this. That's about $75 an hour for that. That's what we were paying for the shutdown. Does this make any sense to anyone out there?
Javier Malay, I don't know if I'm saying his name right, from Argentina. That's the guy I'm picking up. I may not be able to remember it because his last name is strange, but I did know where to find it.
Gotta know how to find information.
Yeah, I think if they were to just, they need to, for one thing, they shouldn't be passing a budget without, actually reading it. But for another, they shouldn't be passing a budget that's this grossly irresponsible. But, if they were to, if we actually had Congress critters that would stand up and
I like that
and say, no, we're not going to pass this. Give us a budget that's workable and shut her down until they actually do. Number one, it would really show everyone in a very quick hurry how much of the bureaucracy is unnecessary.
Oh, yeah.
And that is why they can't do it.
I need to comment on something Tom said here. Tom said the experts separating between what they decide in the popular votes from the actual votes. Then they disregard the will of the American people. Absolutely. And then the next comment is what I want to focus on here for a minute. I believe the government originally got involved in marriages because divorces were taken to court. They needed to create marriage license to help facilitate that. My perspective on this whole marriage license thing is it's about a ownership of assets. Because when you go through divorce, it's all about dividing up assets. And as ineffective as the court systems are, they basically gave the ownership of all your assets within a marriage to the state. And now they get to determine how much you keep, how long they're going to drag these things out, how many times they're going to drag you back in court, how many times that money goes back into the court system because they're taking a clip off of things through the civil action jurisdiction in order to put it into what? The retirement funds and such. Who controls the children? It takes marriage, and the marriage with government involved supersedes your rights in that marriage. And it's all about the commandeering of your assets. The minute you, and I am legally married. So, this is not, I'm not making a statement on people's choices and such. However, as soon as you're married, the state basically takes possession and will take possession over whatever you do through that court system, whether it is a glitch in the marriage, going through probate when you die. Why are they involved in this? Why don't we just say, you want to get married, go get married. If you want to have a civil contract, a contract that you put together, and this is what we're going to do to divide up assets. But if you go through it and you don't have something like that, guess what? Good luck. I hope you chose somebody well that, you chose well in a
business partnership.
Yeah.
Well, you sure would have people selecting marriage partners with a different perspective, wouldn't you?
Yeah, because they won't be able to fall back on I'm going to go in there and we couldn't get along, so I'm going to go for blood in the court system with this partner that I've been with. It's absolutely so messed up. This is so messed up. So I'm an advocate of getting the courts right out of the marriage and the government.
Yep, I am too. The government has no business getting its nose involved in that, in my opinion.
No.
Well, last time we talked, we had a conversation about, it was last week, about the government interfering with the family, and particularly with children. And I happened across, because I don't normally watch Dr. Phil, but I happened across a Dr. Phil episode in which a family was, it was a mom with her two daughters that were living out of a car. They had a homeless situation. And the daughter was 15, had a baby. So now we've got a baby in the picture. CPS found out about this, and they took the $2 away from the mother and put them into a foster home. When they did that, they also went into that home and took the baby from the now 16-year-old girl and put her in another foster home. And that foster woman in the court was like, oh, I will make sure you have contact with her, etc., etc. It's been 5 years and this girl's never seen her daughter.
Because they're
And
probably child trafficking those kids.
They believe, and they had all kinds of arguments. They were so excited on the stage that the mother and the daughter here are just going back and forth of telling Dr. Phil the story. They really believe that CPS targeted them because they had a beautiful little girl. And this woman that has the child is not favorable. I'll just put it that way. So they can tell by observing her social media, she's not being a good mother to this child. And this woman, she's now in a home. She's a responsible young adult. She's fully capable, but she can't get custody back because the woman adopted the little girl. What business did the government or a unconstitutional agency have to get into this? Now, this was a 2-part thing, so then I'm like, oh, I got to watch the next episode. And I couldn't see the next. It was like 2016, and the next episode was on a different topic. So I don't know how the response from the adopted mother, I wanted to see what she was going to say about the whole thing, but I didn't get to find out. But it was a prime example of how CPS kidnaps children.
They get about $1 million a kid for kidnapping them. If you look at the money part of it, there's all kinds of things that happen within these organizations for kidnapping, and it's quasi legal. It's not legal at all, but that they've found to manipulate records and manipulate things, and they're legal. They're kidnapping kids from families.
And then of course
defund it all, defund the whole thing, and prosecute those people to the fullest extent of the law for who has been running kids in these networks, because it's happening all over the place. Tom says it protects people. We're talking about marriages. The government originally got marriages because divorces were taken to court. They needed to create marriage license to help facilitate that. That's right. Take them into court now. It protects people from getting nothing, but it also opens the door for the government to define what is marriage, as well as they're seizing the assets. They will sit there and burn the assets out of these families by continuing to haul them into court. Now, if somebody wants to not have justice, but I mean, look at how many families, you guys have got to know families that this has happened, where they keep dragging them back in and dragging them back in and dragging them back in, and how much money we waste in that situation. This isn't to the benefit of the people involved. It's actual theft of everything without any justice, without any resolution, without the good of anybody involved. This is such a bastardized system. It's not even funny.
It's a violation of rights.
Yeah, I would say anybody that works in those things, you should probably get out, because you know what? Justice is going to come at some point in time. And if you've had, as in our elections, a little finger worth of interaction with this thing, you might just be involved in crimes against humanity if the right person gets in office, because some of us will be just like, you knew what you were doing. You didn't have the best interest of anybody. You served the master of this beast system government, which is the enemy of the people, legally kidnapping children, putting them in child trafficking networks. I mean,
technically illegally.
It's everything. Everything is illegal.
I know what you mean, but I'm going to stand by what Bill would agree with. It's not just unlawful; it's actually illegal because they're violating the Constitution by that agency.
They're violating God's law, and it's like, you have stepped into and usurped the highest form of government, which is the family. You do not have the right to go in any way, shape, or form in your little do-gooder way to throw kids in a system that is already proved to be the largest human trafficking organization, HHS, on the frickin' planet. Government institutional child trafficking. And if you're involved in this, I would suggest you leave and maybe say, you know what, I thought it was maybe a good idea, but I'm really seeing things that aren't so good. And I'd love to see you singing like canaries, like Tara Roda's has. She's brave, and she went in, she's outed this in what's actually happening there, because justice is coming. Justice is going to come swift and decisive, because I'm pretty extra sure that God's not going to put up with us.
Yep. Just
saying. You got, it's like, isn't it amazing how God gives people warning for their bad behavior? He gives them warning. We have time to turn ourselves around and do the right thing. He typically gives a lot of chances. Come on, you can do the right thing. You don't need to do this. There's always an out. You can always quit. You can always step away from something when you realize that it's a bad situation or that people are being harmed. The warning's out there. There's the warning.
There's always a remedy of some sort.
And now you can be part of the solution instead of part of the problem.
Yeah. That's one of the things that I like about the grand jury is grand jury can consider everything about a particular case and say, well, there was a remedy that the last grand jury assigned to the last case that was similar. This case is different. We're going to assign a different remedy because the circumstances are different. The court system isn't so good at doing that, and they actually are terrible at it right now, depending on the judge.
Coercion, and it's theft and coercion. They have no interest in having justice.
No. Well, some of them are, but some of them are really, really terrible at it.
And there's a lot of threat and coercion going on in there too. If you go into a situation like that, you have to be prepared that you're going to have people that are going to attack you. Is that going to dissuade you, or are you okay with the risks that you signed up for?
I think too, this is a topic that we kind of brushed on. I think it was yesterday, if I remember right, about how there are, even in bad or badly structured organizations, there are a lot of them that use people with good intentions unknowingly within them too, where the actual people on the ground involved don't really even understand the things that the impact of the things that they're doing when it actually goes up the chain. And you've got that in a lot of different places. And I think one of our jobs really needs to be to educate those people about what they're doing that's wrong, so that they can get out of that mindset of just following orders out of ignorance.
If somebody gave out the clot shot, the vax, you might as well have put a bullet in someone.
Yeah. And one of the things that I know of, probably, I'm going to say at least 3 people that have gone into the artificial intelligence field and have actively worked on improving artificial intelligence, because they truly believed that it would help humanity. And all 3 of these people I consider to be, at their core, good and ethical people.
Mm-hmm.
But I can pretty well guarantee you that the work that they did has been used by evil people to do unspeakable things.
Mm-hmm.
I think you've got the same thing in pretty much every organization that's out there, no matter how corrupt it is, though, is that there are still going to be people that are in there that don't really realize what they're doing. They haven't been educated on it. Our education system has fallen down terribly with educating people in civics. And there's a lot of those people that don't understand the law. They don't understand what they're doing. They don't understand what they're supposed to be doing. And that really needs to be one of our jobs, is to combat that ignorance, so that if these people are in there doing something, by golly, they had better be knowingly doing it for evil, you know.
Well, you just gave me a great segue there, Ralph. Check this out. So McConnell's sister-in-law that recently drowned in a Tesla is listed as CEO of the company that owns the ship that hit the bridge. It appears the container ship Dolly is owned by the company Foremost Group, which has Angela Chow listed as the CEO on the website. Guess what? And that was by Grok. AI chatbot. So it's aggregating information. And then guess what happened? Google search indicated that Dolly owned by Grace Ocean PTE Partners Limited. However, that information was updated only 2 hours ago. And guess what? Some of our little Anon friends who are just extraordinary had this thing chased down and documented. Thank you all the Anons out there and digital warriors to see that they actually did this. So I got a question here. So the cleanup is in progress. My thing is that notice this came from Grok, the ex AI bot. Bongino was accurate when he says that the elites are scared to death of AI because they don't control because of its potential to tell the truth.
Yep.
There's a couple of dimensions to this.
And there are a lot of these AI models too that you can download AI models and run them on your own computer. And personally, I don't like cloud AI. I think it's a terrible way to go. And any of the AI generators for in the cloud for doing image generation or that sort of thing. Karen, you had actually asked a while back about this, about what I thought of
I'll be right back, guys, okay?
building memes using AI image generation. Yeah. And I am not a fan of that because with that being, the cloud is just someone else's computer. With that being on someone else's computer and under their control, you're effectively training someone else's AI to be able to recognize and be adversarial to the memes that you're generating with that.
Mm-hmm.
And the same is true of pretty much any kind of cloud AI that you use for anything. No matter what you use it for, you are adding additional training data to be able to help them fine-tune that model for whatever purposes that they want to use it for and whatever biases that they want to integrate into that AI model. Now, that said, I have no problems at all with locally run AI models. Those can be incredibly useful. And you can download a lot of these AI models, run them on your computer, and train them using your own training data. Or in some cases, you can even download models that have had the manual revisions to them to add certain biases to them. You can download models that have had those biases removed so that it's more of just the raw statistical data behind it. And those can be really interesting and provide some really interesting insights on human opinions when you get out of that bias area.
So in a sense, you're saying that if a bunch of us on the conservative side were to create clever memes using the cloud, that the left could use AI bots and come up with clever memes for the first time ever.
The left can't meme and the left has no sense of humor whatsoever.
But they can use AI.
Yeah.
You can even see the people on the right that are actually left. Put something out there like Bat Boy and see who cries the most and assume that they're a left or a Marxist.
They're just jealous.
They're just like,
not what I was actually
funny.
Not exactly my point, but a hilarious insight nonetheless. What I was trying to say, though, is more along the lines of if you're generating memes like that using an AI model, you're training that AI model to be able to recognize those memes, which is going to make it easier in the future for them to censor it.
Right.
But if you're running those AI models on your own computer, AI is just statistics. And I mean, you look at how neural networks work. The theory behind this goes back to, I think it's like the 30s, if I remember right, that the experiments with neural networks started. And the mathematics behind it is just another way of doing statistics, really. And the value of it is about being able to distill down all of that data into a much smaller statistical model that's easier and quicker to be able to run. That's kind of what AI is all about. Well, the great thing is that once those models have been aggregated together, you can run those on your computer just the same as someone else can run them in the cloud. And then you have control over what data you want to be able to feed into that to fine-tune the statistics, or to be able to remove those biases that, most of these AI models have been trained on actual human conversations or actual photos that people have posted to the internet and do have some reflection of reality in them. But most of the time when you use them in the cloud, they've been, for lack of a better word, lobotomized to have certain chunks of that disabled or have the weights tuned downward so that they don't actually reflect the common will of the people, but have biases integrated into them by whoever's running that cloud AI model. And a lot of those AI models, though, you can get versions of them that don't have the biases and where they've been just trained on basically the raw internet. Some of those are really interesting to take a look at how they react to things, as opposed to the lobotomized versions that are run by the cloud providers. It can be a really useful tool. AI is nothing but a tool, and it's a statistical model. It's a tool. It's all in how you use it. AI is not a good or bad thing inherently by itself, any more than the data it came from is a good or bad thing inherently by itself.
Clarity Sage just gave said totally agree, Ralph. And also NTSB releases data of Dolly's black box. And I'm going to see if I can you text that to me, please, Clarity? Text it to my phone number because I know you have it. So that would it's easier for me to get it on screen that way when I've got 4 screens going right now. I'm a little disabled when it comes to doing things normal ways. So
yeah, so it's like you can download image generators to your computer, use those to generate a meme. You could easily do that, and that'd be a great way to go. You're not helping somebody else train their models to be able to use them against you. You can use chatbots locally to do all kinds of different stuff. And if you get some of the chatbot models and run them on your own computer, really all you need is just a computer. You don't need any special hardware or graphics card. Good, powerful graphics card helps. And the reason for that is because graphics cards are used to doing a ton of calculations in parallel, not one at a time like a normal computer does. And that's why graphics cards are so important for that. But you can run AI models even without that. Just as long as you have a computer, you can run them locally. There's a bunch of tools for doing that. And one of these days there's a good video tutorial I actually found on doing that a while back, and I'll have to see if I can find that sometime and send that to you. And it's really kind of cool.
I decided that it was far, far easier and more fun for me to make the cheap ones like I did the one I sent you this morning.
I'll put that one up. That's kind of funny. Hang on, I'll put that one up because that is funny. This is really fun.
It took me like 2 minutes.
Yeah, well, this is really fun for us to get to be on here as friends and just have discussions. It's fun. Hang on, I'll put this up real quick.
Yeah, I think it's not a bad idea though. For I've advocated for having a local copy of anything so that you're not dependent on the internet, of any kind of data that you think you're going to need. Make sure you have books, make sure you have your photos not just in the cloud, family photos, that kind of thing. Well, I tend to think that it's also not a bad idea for everyone to have one of these AI models, because they do give you a good way of, for example, you could have a whole bunch of different encyclopedias saved off. That's great. I think it's a great idea to do that. There's a program called KeyWix that lets you download archives of a bunch of different websites so you can browse them locally without being dependent on the internet.
There you go. There's Karen, Ralph, and myself. I think that's fun.
Yes.
You make fun memes.
I had made that first one a while back, and then I just had to wait to get into StreamYard to see the little icon to make that little Ralph the IT part in it, and popped it in there. And
That's fun.
That's
Okay,
cool.
let's see. So,
But yeah, if everyone had a local AI model that you can ask it, ask it questions, like something, if you're used to ChatGPT, you can do the same kind of thing on your own computer, where you can ask it questions and it'll come back with answers for you. Well, those answers are still going to be based off of the training data that it was fed for the statistical model. And in a lot of cases, it actually has enough information integrated into that statistical model to be able to answer questions properly. It's not a bad thing to have as a resource to be able to run that locally if the internet goes down.
I'm
in the
gonna put,
meantime, it's been a while, but I actually went down to the local library, and I checked out 7 books on gardening.
oh, good.
Nice.
We bought some other ones, so I've been doing some reading and trying to overthink the gardening process, and finally dumped a bunch of information on my husband and a bunch of questions, and then I felt better.
Nice.
Did you listen, or did he tell you to find a girlfriend? But that's fine. So I've been and
Often too busy to talk about gardening, but one of these days I will hit you up with a bunch of questions.
yeah, we should do a gardening question and answer for Donna Brandenburg. That would be really fun.
Oh, yeah.
What's the plan? Okay, I got all kinds of ideas. This is going to be fun. It's like summer camp, right?
Should probably.
This is kind of funny. Look at this is like dude's like got little horns on his head.
Another topic that wouldn't be a
Check
bad
where you
thing to do sometime would be to have Bill on and talk about basics of like firearms for like the different calibers, the different types of rounds, compatibility between stuff, because I think that's a subject that there's a lot to that subject.
So I watched this video last night. That's a great idea. I watched this video last night, and I had some off the wall questions about it because it seemed like a lot of distraction. I was kind of like, okay, there's some bigger questions that need to be asked here, but I'll give you points for going through this. But there's some other questions that are indicators that things aren't as it appears.
An engineering group, which gathers evidence to document the design and operation of engineering systems, including the vessel propulsion, steering, and power. The operations and engineering group was able to board the vessel last night, and they did a walkthrough of the vessel, including the bridge and the engine room. They were looking for other electronic components, any sort of downloadable recorders, any sort of cameras, any sort of CCTV. They did not find any of those things, but that search continues.
Okay, so these are the same people that are that are employed by the same people that investigate our let's see, what is this media briefing too? Let's see what we got here.
I wanna mention there was one thing that really stood out to me. I got from Jordan Sather.
Yeah.
He did a video breaking some things down, and one of the things he pointed out was there was an FBI man who did an interview shortly after another one where they said we don't know there was terrorism. And 2 hours later, he says there's no evidence of terrorism.
Of course,
That man was appointed to that FBI office 24 hours before.
You got to be kidding me. That one, I didn't hear that one, but what I did hear is that the pilots were Ukrainian, and then you've got a child that died.
I saw that, but I wasn't sure if it was true.
It keeps coming out. So I mean, we got a lot of questions, but my biggest question, I'm going to drop the bomb here once we look on this, because
the NTSB chair, Jennifer
41 minutes.
That's Homendy, will be making some remarks about the investigation into the act.
Okay, so there's the entire press conference, and so that we have, and they've got the black box. I'm not sure where that is, but here is something that I think is really interesting, that an article, Straight Line Logic, that I wanted to bring out. And General Flynn been talking about the Black Swan event, questions during about the Baltimore bridge collapse by Tyler Burton, which I think is really interesting. And it goes to Zero Hedge. And then we've got some port stuff, and we've got some more information there. There were no vehicles traveling on the Francis Scott Key Bridge when it fell into the ocean. Now, I want you to think about this. How come? And I listened to the black box where they try to stop traffic and such, but this seems a little scripted to me. It seems a little scripted. And then the key indicator that to me that it was scripted, I'm going to bring up in a minute. There's no vehicles traveling on the Francis Scott Key Bridge when it fell into the ocean, thanks to the heroic police officers who jumped into action. It has now been confirmed that the only people on the bridge when it collapsed was a pothole repair crew. Okay.
Then why did they find a red pickup truck with 2 dead people in it yesterday?
So there you go. I have a lot of questions here, and these are the same people that probably were from the same departments that investigated the Twin Towers, which we know was a complete and utter sham and a cover up, the likes of which this nation has never seen. Okay. So Flynn called the container ship ramming into the 1.6 mile long bridge at the Port of Baltimore a Black Swan event. So let's listen to what General Flynn says here just real quick.
First of all, Black Swan events are usually, from the financial world, right? Well, this actually will impact the financial world for sure. But these are events that happen that, you just can't imagine that something like this is going to happen. There are ships that transit every port, harbor, bay, particularly the large ports like the Baltimore Harbor, every single day, multiple times a day. And for something like this to happen, this complete violation of all standards and norms, they have what's called a SOP, standard operating procedures, that every single ship's captain has to go through prior to taking off from the dock itself, actually prior to getting on the ship. So everything that I see here, and the jury is going to be out for a while. This is not, I was asked earlier today, Alex, can we take the idea that this was a terrorist attack off the table? And absolutely, we cannot do that.
I agree with that.
While other networks lie to you about what's happening now, InfoWars tells you the truth about...
Especially within 24 hours.
Okay, and when you see the videos, I know people will say, well, it looks like the electric cables are snapping, but there's electric cables, but there's no transformers there, to my knowledge, to blow. So what created the many explosions across this bridge? I'm kind of not buying this. It doesn't look right to me. And so here we go. Here's the job placement company, Baltic Shipping, shows the captain of the container ship is indeed Ukrainian. Okay, so there's your proof right there, is that we're talking about Ukrainians. And some of the other things, let's see if I can continue reading here, but it will continue. The ship has $3 billion in reinsurance coverage over a $1 million retention. Why is it that immediately Biden, the traitor, gets up and says, we're going to pay for that? The United States government is going to pay for that entire bridge. Immediately. We're going to react. So it looks to me like somebody created a crisis, and now they've got the answer here in order to not let a crisis go to waste. we're going to find another way, since the money going to Ukraine and Haiti and all over the friggin' globe, people are not buying this. Oh no, we've got to funnel this to this bridge. But the telltale thing to me was how much coffee goes through that port. It's not the hazardous materials. There's all of these things that are a distraction, in my opinion. It's the goods that go through that port. And they're talking about this thing being closed to ships for a year. Now, either these people are really stupid or they're complicit in this. Why would they have to have this closed for an entire year? Wouldn't an effective manager look at this and says, you know what? We got to get those shipping lanes open. Somebody start cutting this thing up, and let's get the pieces out of there to continue to make. We're going to open something up so we can get the ships in and out. Makes no sense to come right off the bat saying this thing's going to be closed for a year. Oh my gosh, everybody panic. We're not going to be able to get this thing open for a year. I'm not.
And it's going to take a bunch of government money.
It's going to take all kinds of money, and you're going to be inconvenienced for a whole year. It's terrible. And we're going to obfuscate the truth on this, because a good manager is going to go in there and they're going to say, I need some people. Let's get moving. We got to get these shipping lanes open. It's one of the main ports for bringing coffee into the United States. So I'm just going to make a little prediction here. I'm going to guess that our prices of coffee are going to go through the freaking roof. And this is all by design, all of it. So now my question is, there's a few other things that I want to bring up, because I think there's more to the story than what's coming out in the news, just because that's the way that I think, right? My thought process on it is, who blew the bridge? Who created this story? There seems to be a lot of convenient facts in this, and I'm not sure we know who took that bridge down yet, or the real purpose for taking the bridge down. Is it economic? Not sure. I think there might be another reason behind that. And I've got a few scenarios in my head running around, that's rattling around in my head right now, of who actually took this thing down and organized this. Because nothing
and why.
Years.
Yeah, the why will lead you to the who. But it could be one of those things that has multiple answers to it.
It could be.
You know, one of the first things that I asked on my channel was, who else is asking what's in these containers? And that may not be the point at all, but it might be a factor.
Why are we stopping traffic? What kind of traffic was being slowed down? And I'm not just talking about the traffic in the water. I'm talking about the traffic on the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Who would have taken this down? I mean, we got to look at it from all angles, because they're not going to tell us the truth.
Yeah.
And how many years did it take for the Twin Towers to really have the majority of the people say, you know what, I'm not buying this nonsense, and see that Mossad was involved in it, or CIA, the whole thing. We took our own towers down. Even General Stumblebine was talking about the missile in the Pentagon, or the plane. He said there was no plane. He said, I saw the missile. And he said all of a sudden it started to dispute. He's been outspoken about this. So, you know, it's going to come out. But I am, Lev says, I'm reading the water has a sheen on it. It's probably contaminated now. Well, we don't know that. It could be oil. Who knows?
Right.
You know, it could be a million things. And so, but they're certainly gonna try to make everybody panic about this. So yes, we've got to get the quickest thing is all of a sudden let's empty the coffers and get this stuff, you know, working. We're gonna pay for it. Well, who's got insurance on this from the ship's perspective? Why are we paying for something that a company created the crisis, and a large company? And why are we having a bridge sit in the water to shut down the shipping lanes for a year? Makes no sense whatsoever.
Maybe it'll stop some criminal activities, and it's a good thing.
That's the direction that my mind's going.
And it might be something that we're not going to get an answer to.
Maybe right away.
Because it's protecting us.
Mm-hmm. The harbinger of things to come. I would suggest everybody perhaps realize that I just got this feeling that things are going to be happening real quick here, real quick. Sometimes you got to block the ways for bad guys to get away too.
Yeah.
Interrupt their travel plans just a little bit. Don't know this, can't prove anything, just observations.
You know, it's really, that's the thing. And I keep saying we should not jump to conclusions and react emotionally. It's okay to ask questions about all kinds of things. Was there a bomb? Were there explosions? Who is the captain? Was it a cyber attack? Did the power actually go out? Or was it just they turned a bunch of lights off? What kind of covers are you going to have? Whatever. And this is why I've been watching the nightly news, and I post some things about, here's what they did. They spent about 10 minutes roughly on the princess and about 2 minutes on Moscow, the first nightly news after it happened. Why do we care about her video? There's nothing more to say about her video about how she has cancer. We're not going to talk about Moscow having a major incident in which over 100 people were injured, people were killed. It was a terrorist attack. This is that has a global effect. The princess having cancer does not have a global effect. Why is the narrative, or why is the focus of the media on something else? That's why I do watch that sometimes. What are they spending time talking about, and what is it they're saying? What do they end on when they talk about Trump and his cases lately? Yesterday, it was all about how he was proven his stupid, fake attack about the election being wrong and how he's lost in court and he's just being ridiculous and you shouldn't vote for him. That's what they're trying to tell us in ABC News. They are biased against him. It's very clear that they don't like our president, our commander-in-chief, and they don't want to see him elected. So what is the angle? There it's very, very clear what they want you to believe. What did they say at the end of their piece about Moscow? Well, we don't think it was, the U.S. had warned about things like this happening. So, or we shared our intelligence with Moscow. That's the last thought that they want to leave you with. So what does that actually tell you? If you know they're faking everything they tell you, and they're telling you mistruths, then you have to look at the opposite. What is the direction of the truth if they're telling you a lie? A lot of people.
And to think about that, to further build on what you're saying here, to your point, is that we're in a war right now. We are absolutely at war. We're in a war. There are different factions within our own government that are fighting. So was this honestly a strategic move? By which side?
Right.
Because I don't believe that this is an accident. There's no possible way, just even looking at this at face value, and their thought process, the illogical thought process around, well, this is going to take a year to open the shipping lanes up. All right, who's it going to cause the most problems? The coffee, the delivery of service, and probably the trafficking of kids out. There's all of these different things that are running behind the scenes here. So who took the bridge down? We don't know, but guaranteed it's somebody from within. So, and I have a feeling it was a strategic plan, and we may never find out the reason, or not find out for a long time. But I'm kind of not buying this, because anybody that actually wanted this thing to work could get the pieces in place, unless they're just totally stupid, could get the pieces in place to make this thing open up and not have a long-term impact pretty fast.
So thinking about something else too that Karen just said is, she was talking about the princess and cancer and that being a big thing. Now, to kind of tie this back into what we were talking about earlier, I had cancer many years ago. I'm clear of it now, but I would not, nor would I recommend that people donate to these big the cancer like research foundations and all of these 501c3s that are involved in that. And once again, kind of tying it into there are people in every organization every bad organization that are good. I think a lot of the cancer researchers that are out there are trying to do good work. But the organizations that you can donate to, save your money. They're not actually out there helping cancer patients. And when you get cancer and you get into that and see what's going on behind the scenes with that, it is such a money-making racket from every side that, like I said, I do believe that there are a lot of very good cancer researchers out there, but man, the organizations that you can donate to, I wouldn't donate to them, and I don't think anybody else should. That whole industry needs to be defunded so that the actual researchers can actually do the research that needs to be done. Because the industry itself, the cancer industry, is stifling the money that's involved in the cancer industry. In my opinion, seeing it from the inside, is stifling the progress of actual cancer research.
I think we should have a discussion just on that, you and I someday, Ralph, because I think that we might have something in common here that we can absolutely talk about and not use for political gain like Tudor Dixon did, but actually have actual discussions on this, on what's running behind the scenes, because people really need to know what's really going on out there. And if you see it firsthand, you can call bullshit on it real quick when you see what's going on.
Yep.
And he's doing that because I mentioned Princess. And so what mattered to me that day was the Moscow story. It may be that the other story about the princess is leading to other things if people would dig into it. And it just wasn't something of interest to me. But I noticed there was someone saying, well, I wonder what kind of treatment plan she's choosing. Are they going to treat her very differently than they would the average person who's not in the royal family? And so it does prompt questions to other people that it doesn't to me, and that's fine. But I was looking at the broader concept of what story are they highlighting tonight. But that doesn't mean that story doesn't have an impact in other ways that I'm not going to see. And it might take other researchers, other people going, what kind of questions can we ask with this narrative? Why are they putting this out now? Why did she do that? Why did she go public? Why did she go public now versus a different time? Why doesn't she have other family support sitting with her in the video? You could ask a bunch of questions on that too. And that's where everybody has their lane of interest and what they see. And that's one of the great things about America is we have so many different people with so many different skills, parts of the body coming together, and if everybody should work together, you'd have, Karen's meat garden and Donna's vegetable garden, and we could somebody else that is an expert in making leather shoes.
Yeah, I'm working on sheep right now. I need some sheep.
Oh, I saw this video. Did I send it to you? There was a video of this adorable little sheep bounding towards somebody. It had a treat for it. And it had all these long curly locks and little black ears or something, and it was so cute.
Okay, I'm going to throw out a video online. And, let's see. Oh, this is funny. So Grace is putting...
I thought you would go for goats.
No, I don't want goats. I want sheep because I want to get the wool. I'm not going to eat them. So, I want something with milk and sheep cheese and wool. That's my thing right now. So that's what I'm figuring things out, and figured out how to, in fact, make rennet, which is what you need for making cheese, using stinging nettle.
So
Very
have you
cool.
had sheep's milk?
Had sheep cheese.
We had thought about whether we would want to raise goat or sheep for meat, and tried some meat. I think it was goat. Maybe it was sheep. My husband wanted to try it, and his body didn't react too well to it. So he's like, I don't think this is for us. Because you can raise a meat goat really quickly for a substantial amount of meat. But they're so stinking cute that we didn't want to go that route. We were already in love with our little.
Well, I'm a vegetarian, so I'm not gonna kill whatever I have. So it's gonna be a pet that will live a wonderful life out here on our little farm, and we can coexist in different ways for me. So that's what I'm looking for. So, but we can do cheese with it, as well as, let's see what we got here. We've got all kinds of. Let me see if I can get past the ads. We haven't had our ode to the prostate yet.
Alps to look at a little fluff ball that
Usually I get Trump bobbleheads.
rhymes are made of. The Valais black-nosed sheep is
That's
just,
it right there.
but don't let its awe-inspiring features fool you. There's more to this little ruffian than meets the eye. Here we have a breed that has no business being on the endangered list. Valais are just too versatile, valuable, and, well, simply too gorgeous to be allowed to die out. Let's get into what the Valais black-nosed sheep has to offer for your farm, and why they should be preserved at all costs.
Right.
Valais originated in Switzerland, somewhere in the southwestern region of Valais, hence the name. But they also go by their German moniker, Walliser Schwarznasenschweif. Since the two are exact translations of each other, and we run the risk of butchering the pronunciation multiple times in one video, we're going to play it safe with the English version for today. By the time they were first recorded in records in the 15th century, the Valais was the product of many years, maybe even hundreds of years, of breeding between neighboring breeds to hone in on the more desirable
I need
traits
these,
that the
okay?
Swiss were looking for. They wanted a dual-purpose sheep that could provide both meat
Seems
and
like a
wool.
good plan.
And they
How much
needed
acreage do they need?
cold and snowy
Not a ton.
mountain ranges of Switzerland.
Looks like you get an awful lot of wool out of those guys.
Yeah, about 200 pounds a year.
Of the year.
Wow.
The Valais morphed into a rather large sheep that could scale rough terrains, and they weren't too picky about the conditions they were put into. And even though their wool has always fetched a handsome price on the market, the Valais managed to remain in the background. Somehow, they were almost entirely confined to Switzerland, well into the 19th century. It
Did
wasn't
you guys
until
ever see that one
1952
documentary
they would
about
finally
reconstruction of the
and they were
earliest
officially added to breeding
pair of
rosters. Their place
pants
as a background
that was
character
Hang on a second,
was a
Ralph.
little perplexing. You would
I
think
gotta
that
watch
hobby
these sheep a
breeders
minute, then we'll
would
go to
flock
that.
to collect such a unique and attractive
They're just
animal,
cute.
and their meat and wool have always been held in high regard. Their meat is very tender and is almost exclusively served in upper-class establishments, while their wool is probably the best at taking to the dyeing process. The Valais fleece was just made to absorb color and retain it with the utmost richness and shine. They come out so vibrant that Valais wool can be spotted a mile away when they are mixed with other breeds' wool in the same vat of dye. And at the end of the day, it was indeed the handful of hobby breeders that ensured that more attention was brought to the Valais. In the 90s, they were looking at the very real possibility of the Valais going extinct when their numbers reached an all-time low. Less than 5,000 heads could be counted in Switzerland. Since they were exclusively kept in the region of Valais, their habitat and gene pool were getting smaller, and the lack of demand for their meat and wool just wasn't enough to give outsiders the incentive to keep them. A plan of action was written up by the early 2000s, and a handful of them were shipped to farmers in the British Isles to get their numbers up. Between the Swiss and the Brits, we can now count 3
Okay, I'm gonna get some sort of a weird strike on YouTube, but you get the feel. I posted it on my Telegram channel. I need these sheep. In fact, I found somebody and I said, okay, I need some sheep. We're gonna plant sheep all over the state of Michigan here and save a dying breed because you know what these morons in office have done? They have made it illegal to be able to have sheep, different types of sheep here. So they're trying to kill farming is what it is. So I think we should make it our goal to save these little black nose sheep that are just so stinking cute. It's not even funny. So Donna Brandenburg is on the prowl right now to save these sheep and breed some sheep.
Yeah, so I was bringing up there's a documentary I saw a while back about some people that were reconstructing the oldest pair of pants that have ever been found on an archaeological site, basically to figure out what all was involved in that. And it's really kind of brilliant, the textile work that went into these original pants. But as part of that reconstruction, they were making replica ancient pants, and so in studying the fibers, they had to find replica ancient sheep to get the wool from, because modern sheep, the wool is so different.
Okay, here's a new one. I'll put it up. Keep talking. I'm sorry.
And so they had to find this one little tiny farm that had this nearly endangered flock of these heritage sheep that still had wool that were similar to this. Yeah, that's the one. If you skip to, I think it's about the 20-minute mark.
Okay, hang on. We'll grab it here and see if we can make it go down to 20 minutes.
It's a fascinating documentary.
I've actually watched it. See, this is the problem that you have right now, guys, just so you know. This is like the meeting of the nerds here on Brandenburg News Network. This is Nerd TV. You're about to enter Nerd TV right now, because we love this kind of stuff. And what do we talk about? Do we talk about politics? No, we talk about nerd stuff all the time.
Replica ancient sheep.
Yes, because you have to, right?
Yeah.
I don't know if anybody can hear it, because I've got to figure out how to run my sound through my computer.
Yeah, I'm not hearing any audio.
I can hear it. Eric White keeps telling me I need to show you how to put the sound through your computer. I need to call him.
Yeah, they show the sheep that, yeah, there we go. The replica ancient sheep that somebody has kept this one breed of sheep going, and it's a rare breed of sheep. They're almost extinct. Cute. And this is exactly what they needed to be able to reconstruct these pants.
They're not as cute as my goats. I'm sorry.
They're not as cute as those black nose ballets either.
No.
Those guys are pretty cute. Yeah,
they're real cute. In fact, I talked to somebody this week that's running farm, and I said, I need to find some of these ballet sheep. See if you've got somebody that would want to see them rescued. I'll give them a good home, and we'll make lots of baby sheeps, and we'll have lambs and all that sort of thing. And I said,
that was an expert there.
That's amazing. Get it all in one piece, one fleece.
Yeah. With those extremely sharp scissors, single-handedly.
That's got to be incredibly comfortable to be a sheep with that much wool.
Hey, you know what? I want to get a big shear and shear my own sheep. That looks like fun. Have you ever seen somebody that's like amazing that does it with the shears? Man, they can roll that wool off of there so fast, and the sheep are just kind of like, oh, this is awesome.
Definitely a symbiotic relationship between humans and sheep.
I wonder if they go into a sort of tonic state like chickens do. Oh, I should tell you, I looked in the coop for eggs the other day, and the one I call Monkey, she's like this little blue one that we got when she was a young hen or pullet, not yet laying, but she's kind of the wild child. I call her Monkey because she used to roost in a tree, but it was low enough that I could grab her by the feet every night and put her in the coop. But she got mad and finally figured out that she better just run when she sees me coming at dusk. So she does not like me. And so I looked in, and there she is sitting in the nest box, and she's standing actually, and she had this really weird look on her face. Like her eyes looked funny, and I was like, what are you doing? do you have any eggs in there? And she's just looking at me funny. And then I realized the way she was standing, I looked under, and sure enough, she dropped an egg while I was watching her. And then she continued staring at me funny, because while they lay, they are often in this, what you might call a tonic state. It's a weird state. And they're kind of like frozen there for a moment until I just reached for her egg, and then she's like, ah, and she ran away. So I got that. They don't come much fresher than that. It's rare that I actually see a hen lay, but it has happened.
Oh, that's fun. Chickens are fun. I think we're up to about oh my gosh, we got so many eggs coming on right now. You know, after wintertime, they kind of slow down because it's based on the cycle of the sun and how much light they have to. I know you guys know this, but the average person out there probably has no idea the fact that the laying cycle for chickens is affected by the amount of sunlight they get in a day. Sort of like horses. Horses have to have, in order to go into heat to have babies, they have to have 16 hours of sun a day. That's how much. That's what it takes.
Yeah, and it's not the heat; it's the light.
It's the light. The light is what triggers the laying of eggs. The light is what triggers horses going into heat on a farm. You can force them to lay more eggs in the winter by having a light in their coop. We kind of like to respect the natural order of things. So we let them cut way back in the wintertime. We don't force that like commercial farms do, because there's a reason why God has things work the way that they do. Like you can companion plant, and in companion planting, you have certain plants that put out scents or hormones or whatever that keep the pests away from others. Like when I was a kid, it was normal to always plant marigolds in your garden or at the ends of the rows. You always planted marigolds. That's why there's so marigolds around, which I love marigolds, because you get the really tall ones that are like 2-3 feet tall, and you get the small ones and different colors and such. But the reason why is it keeps rabbits away. And so you want to keep rabbits out of your garden, plant marigolds. That's pretty easy solution right there. They don't like the smell of it, and so they go away. And there's things like that you do. Like the reason why spaghetti sauces or the marinara sauces grew up is because there's a symbiotic relationship between tomatoes, basil, and oregano. So you plant them together, and they keep each other's pests away. You don't have to use all the pesticides. It's so much easier than what people think it is. There's an order to things, and you can intercrop to save your space. Intercropping is that you understand this crop grows here, and this, it's a timing thing. So maybe you have one that grows up and uses the sunlight at one point in time, and they get up and where they get the maximum amount of sunlight, and you plant around them in order to conserve space. In this very small space, you can grow a lot more vegetables than you can in a large space with a fraction, and I mean a fraction of the effort involved in it. You know what, guys? It's like 11:30 right now. I just realized it. This is why I like the two of you on here, because we're friends and we go into all these crazy things like sheep and gardening, what we really love doing. Do we like politics? Not on your life. Not on your life.
Mm-hmm.
It's a soulless, and just it's like people treating each other and winning at all costs like a sports team. That's not okay. And tackle, disable the enemy at all costs. This is not okay. That's what the problem is with political parties. It's win at all costs. And actually, when I said that to Scotty, I said, shouldn't be like sports teams. He goes, well, it is. And I'm like, no. And that's the problem. The problem is this shouldn't be treated like a sporting event. We're trying to save our country. That means we got to unite and find those things that can unite us.
Bread and circuses.
That's all it is. Same thing with the bridge. I want to find. I'm working through this thing, but the bridge doesn't make sense. Anybody that had half a brain could have that bridge cleared out of the way and the shipping lanes open in 2 weeks flat. So it's either intentional or these people are really stupid. So I'm going with the intentional thing. There's too many aha moments looking at this. I think it's intentional. So there you go. Let's see. I'm amazed that they don't cut the sheep's skin. No, I think you get used to holding like shears and such, because we work with it with the horses and such. You learn how to hold the shears and such. It's the angle, so that like if you want to practice, but you get, it's a skill. You're gonna have a skill with that, just like anything. And Tom said, I learned something new today. Hey, yeah, let's talk about farming. Now that's a great subject. Let's let the political morons go ahead and destroy each other. Never interfere with the enemy when they're in the business of destroying themselves, right? So
well, sometimes we can get really overwhelmed by all the negativity, and that's why you and I can sit back and laugh at it, because if you keep a 10,000-foot view, it's a lot easier to go, that's not right, and just kind of laugh at it, and then go out in your garden and make sure that you get some sunlight and you get your fingers into the soil, do some earthing. And that's the kind of thing I'm really looking forward to this year, because I haven't done a garden since I was a kid, a young teenager, maybe preteen, I think, since I've done any gardening. And having a tomato plant in a bucket is different than doing a whole garden. And I want to do a small one, but I want to get my fingers in the dirt and get outside and have a mission, since the goats and the rabbits are gone now.
I want to teach people how to do vertical gardening too. I think I might do some taping of that, so that we can look into vertical gardening, because you can do that with like no space at all.
I want to do some sprouting too.
Sprouting is cool. I like sprouting. Sprouting is pretty easy. You just have to remember when you soak the seeds, you got to remember that you don't really know what's on the seeds. So if you put a little bit of vinegar in with the seeds at first, like a tablespoon, as you soak them for let's just say you're going to use 1/4 cup of sprouts that you want to do microgreens with. We'll say microgreens. Yep. Go ahead and put them in say a jar or a bowl or a jar or something with some water, and put in like a tablespoon of vinegar. Well, that gets rid of a lot of the fungus and some of the other things that could be traveling on those seeds. And it helps them. So you're softening them up so that they can absorb the maximum amount of water. Then you put them on your sprouting, your sprouting foundation. I like using the silicone mats. I think the silicone mats are kind of nice, and you can just wash them and reuse them. You don't have to keep using or buying, say, like the coconut shell material, that material.
You need to share a link for that.
Yeah, that works out pretty well. And then all you have to do is you have to remember, you want to drain the water off on the bottom, just like you would sprouts. Sprouts, you want to, if you're sprouting in a jar or something like that, you can sprout anything in a jar, and you're gonna have a salad in 4 to 7 days, depending on what, with really, really high packed nutrient value. And so you got to change the water on them often, though, and you don't want to use chlorinated water either. So you want to have good water. You dump the water off, and then you put new fresh water on it, so it doesn't get like moldy and such. And you start it out by having them in the dark at first. You have to think about how they grow. Seeds grow underground, so they start out in the dark. You want them to be in the dark for a period of time, a couple of days, and then if you want them to green up, you take them out so that they've got a little bit of light on them, and then they'll green up and look real pretty and such. So lots of ways of doing this, but I can show you guys how to do pretty much any of this stuff, just because I always had a curious mind, so I always went that way and learned things in those directions, and grew up on a farm, so you kind of learn those sort of things by people passing them on to you. Any last words here?
I'd still love to try doing an edible algae bioreactor.
That would
be
really
fun. Cool.
Spirulina or something like that.
Yep,
that would be really fun.
Spirulina is incredibly nutritious, and I think that'd be a lot of fun to try growing that.
We need to talk about all these things and the nutrient form, and why algae is such a good food source. Actually, it's a good food source.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. The edible algae are an incredible food source. Tons of different nutrients you can get from those that are otherwise very difficult to actually get in the same kinds of quantities. It's really kind of a neat system.
It is really interesting. Okay, guys, let's say prayers, and then we're going to go on our way. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you so very much for this wonderful day today. I ask your blessings on Ralph and on Karen. And I'm thankful for my good friends all over the place that are standing here as we watch each other's backs and we listen to each other's hearts and help us to process the world around us, knowing that at all times that you are in charge of this world that we live in. And we're so thankful for that. We will follow you and do whatever it is that you ask us to do, because we don't have faith in what we want to have done or the outcomes that we desire. We have faith that you're good all the time, and know that our faith is in you, your person, your character, and our will is that your will be done, because you've got that 100,000 foot perspective. You know everything inside and out, backwards and forwards, where it's been and where it's going. And we trust you to navigate us through any waters, whether they're rough or smooth, to provide in season and out of season, and to guide us and direct us in all things. You are so good to us, and we love you so very much. We want to be a good friend to you, and we love you. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. So, hey, can you guys come on tomorrow at 9:00 for a little while?
Yeah, I think I could do that.
Okay, that sounds good. So with that said, we're gonna have them in, and we'll do our Easter thing tomorrow, because Tom said Happy Easter to you too, Tom. So with that said, we should bring Karen with the heart hands on too. See, I got all my toys here. This is great. There's Karen with the heart hands right there. So we'll know she's here because out of the vision of my camera here. Let's see if I can stack up something here to see if you guys can see Karen. Okay, there's Karen. Hopefully she won't fall. So with that said, God bless you all. God bless all those whom you love, and God bless America. Have a great day. Make it so. Ralph, we're going to have to see if we can get you one of these. Let's see if we can see what we can do with that. We need some heart hands here. So have a wonderful day. Know that you're loved, and make it a great day. It's a day to rejoice, because this is a day that the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. We'll see you tomorrow.